Greetings and welcome to my new calculus channel. My name is John Gabriel, and today I'm going to be discussing one of the topics that I discussed in earlier videos concerning the development of Greek geometry and the foundational concepts such as points, lines, circles, etc. So let's begin. Now, you may have remembered that from previous videos, and I know I've covered this in previous videos, but I'm going to try and cover it a little better. You know, there are many mainstream academics who believe that these notions are undefined and that one must accept them on belief. In other words, axiomatically. So you're looking at a video on this site by Brian McCall. He's obviously not a very intelligent guy, but he says, from these three undefined terms, all other terms in geometry can be defined. He's wrong, actually. A point is very well defined, and from a point, all the other concepts can be defined. Now, you must remember that initially a point is defined in a primitive way, and then at a later stage, when we've defined lines from point, then we can get to distances, and then get to the next stage of a definition of point in terms of measure. Okay, so initially the initial definition of point doesn't include measure. It's stated very plainly as a concept of location. Okay, in other words, let's dismiss this right now and go to the I'm going to come back to the Wikipedia one, but let's just look at this one. It says a point in geometry is a location. Yes, very good. This site gets a mark for saying that. It has no size, no width, no length, and no depth, and it says a point is shown by a dot. Well, now it says a point is shown by a dot. It means that this is just a visualization of a point. It's not a point, by the way. It's something that we use to talk about a point, in this case a plane, because the paper in front of you is flat. So in this case it's a point in a plane. And of course, even this side starts going wrong, because it says a line is defined as a line of points that extends infinitely in two directions. That's absolute rot. A line is not defined by a line as a line of points. That's actually circular, in fact. But it's not even defined by points themselves. It's defined as the distance between 2 points. But I don't want to jump ahead now. I'll show you how to define a point in this particular video, and in the next one I'll show you how we can define a line, or maybe I'll even get to a line in this video too. But now, so this is a slightly better interpretation than the previous one. And now let's get to Wikipedia moronica, which is the one you see in front of you. It says very wrongly that in modern mathematics a point refers to usually an element of some set called a space. Absolute hogwash. It says more specifically in Euclidean geometry a point is a primitive notion. Well, it starts off as a primitive notion. But notice what the reptiles in the mainstream say. They say it's a concept that is not defined in terms of previously defined concepts. Well, of course it's not defined in terms of previously defined concepts if it's a primitive notion. There's no question about that. And it can be defined without referring to other concepts, as I'm about to show you shortly. So it says it is often motivated informally by the orangutans in the Church of Academia by an appeal to intuition and everyday experience. Absolute rot. This is why mainstream mathematics academics have never understood the concept of number or even the basics of mathematics. They're absolute fools when it comes to this. They believe, and again I say believe, in axiomatic theory. Okay, so I'm not going to spend time on the rot in Wikipedia, but I'm going to show you now that you can define a point very simply. Okay, so what is a point really? In my chapter here, this is an excerpt of the chapter called "There Are No Axioms or Postulates in Mathematics." What is a point? It's simply the idea of a location or place. It asks the question where. So initially, you can say that we can define point as either here or not here, depending on where we are, okay? So if I am here and you are here, then you're exactly where I am. And if you're not here, then you're somewhere where I am not, okay? So in other words, our locations are different. And you can see that using these two attributes, here and not here, we have defined a point primitively. But you may say, well, that doesn't say nothing about where the point is located. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. We have here and not here. So that does tell us two things, okay? And it can only be here and not here. There's no other choice. So we have defined a point primitively, right? Now, we need to do this systematically. So remember that the next logical idea that arises is the relation of one point to another. That is, how to get from one location to another. And that asks the question, how to get there. In other words, what are the directions? Okay, so, and we'll get to that in a moment. So we can't give precise directions yet. Now, for example, if there were only two of us in the universe and you were somewhere far away and I couldn't see you, there'd be no way for you to give me systematic instructions to reach you, or vice versa, okay? But we would know that there are innumerably many paths. And what is a path? Okay, a path is simply a set of, or a composition of directions, okay? In other words, a way of getting from one point to another. And directions don't even have to be well defined right now, because we can define direction primitively also by saying there are two directions. One that allows us to, one that means we keep on seeing the object that we're approaching continuously, and that if we see anything else, then we've deviated from that direction. And also the other direction mean that as we're moving away, we only see that object. Now, if there's even a change, the least change in what we see, then it's a change in direction. In other words, a different direction is possible, right? So if we think of two individuals as points and a third person moving from one individual to the other without any change in direction, we arrive at the idea of shortest distance. And guess what? This is a line. And from this we can formulate the straight line, which is a second geometric object. It says a straight line describes a set of directions or a composition of directions between one point and another such that the direction remains changed. In other words, the direction meaning what we see remains remains unchanged as we approach the one point from where we are to where we are not. Okay, so nothing here has been assumed in terms of previous notions or definitions. So the absolute morons in mainstream academia, the church of academia, the vile reptiles, have been telling you for many decades that a point is an undefined object. It's completely untrue. It's very well defined, and I've also just defined a straight line. So you can see that between any 2 points, you have many paths or lines, okay? And the one in which the approach of you from one point to another remains the same, so that nothing changes, not even in the least, that is the straight line, okay? It's the shortest path, or the shortest line, or the shortest distance. So a line really has as its main attribute, any line, whether it be straight or otherwise, as its main attribute, it has distance. In other words, how long. And we can see that there is only one line that will satisfy the condition where what we see remains unchanged, and that must be the straight line. Okay, so I think I've only got 15 minutes, and I'll have to stop soon. So what I've shown you here now is that I've defined two objects for you, the point and the straight line. And don't worry, because we're going to get back to the point after we've defined distance and we've defined numbers, but that comes gradually. So the ancient Greeks were familiar with all these concepts. They were aware that these things could be derived from nothing. After all, their mathematics was influenced by the greatest philosopher who ever lived, Plato. Okay, in other words, their concepts must be based on well-formed ideas. And if they're not well-formed, then nobody can realize well-formed knowledge. Okay, so what's happening here is that we've managed to define the first two objects, the point and the straight line, and any other line, in fact, because any other line is just a distance between 2 points. It doesn't include the points. That's why a point has no size and no extent and no dimension. Did you think the Greeks didn't know what they were talking about? You're out of your mind. No one has matched the clarity of thought of the ancient Greeks. No one before or after them. So, in the next video, I'm going to explain to you how to arrive at a circle. And I'm going to derive all the 5 requirements and then show you that you can actually arrive at the definition of a point in terms of a measure, and gradually the definition of a line in terms of measures, i.e. an equation, for example. Okay? Now, please remember to like this video and to vote it up and to tell your friends and to become a subscriber, because I have many enemies, and there will be people who watch this video who will be notified that there's a new video uploaded, and they won't even watch it. They'll just come to the site and vote it down. Okay, so there are several of those people who don't want you to know these things, and some of them are possibly paid trolls. So help me in this respect. Click like on the video, spread the news, tell your friends about it, and in that way I won't think I'm wasting my time. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to teach you that these basic concepts can be derived from an absolute void universe. It's not necessary to believe in anything. It's not necessary to even go by the complete rot known as the ZFC axioms and all the other crap that you find in mainstream mathematics. Well, I'm really out of breath now, but I'm on the roll. So I'll tell you this. Next time we'll cover a lot more. We'll talk about the derivation of the circle and possibly more objects that are related and more concepts that are related to the measure of the circle. And gradually we'll come back to the measure of a point in terms of distance. But right now we don't even have distance. We just have a primitive notion of distance as being a systematic composition of directions between 2 points, right? Systematic, meaning that the direction changes. I don't even care how it changes, just that it changes, and that any path in which the direction changes is longer than the shortest distance, which is a straight line. So I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation and that you'll join me again, hopefully soon, for another one. This is the New Calculus channel, and my name is John Gabriel. Till next time, friends, goodbye.